Hello and welcome. I am Stacey Thomas, author, ALS advocate, film producer, and talk show host. I'm here to motivate, educate, and entertain. Join me on YouTube every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Stacey Thomas Talk Show, where we have powerful discussions centered around health, relationship, careers, and everyday conversation. Follow me on Facebook, I am Stacey Thomas. On Instagram, Stacey Thomas Talk Show. And don't forget, I can promote you too. Email me at imstaceythomas@gmail.com. Now, it's time for the show. Hello, everybody. I am Stacey Thomas, and this is the Stacey Thomas Show. And thank you for tuning in. And for you, those of you that don't know me, I always like to remind people, I am so blessed. I am so blessed with this platform. And tonight, someone that I met years ago, but I see her on social media. I see what she's doing for authors. I see people interviewing her, and I said, you know what, Stacey, see if she'll come on your platform. And look at God. Why don't you? I'm going to bring on now my guest, Ellen Sudderth from ESP Presents. Hello.
Hi, Stacey. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for blessing my platform and be willing to talk to me, beautiful. How are you?
I am great and back at you. Beautiful back at you.
Thank you. It's something how I always say you have to watch how you treat people in the world. Because if people don't remember anything else, they'll remember something bad, right?
Right.
And I saw you online and I'm like, I've met her, but I knew it wasn't anything bad. I said, I've met her. And then you say you remember me, I believe.
Yes.
So back to what I said, watch how you treat people because down the road, you never know when you may need them or meet up with them again. So thank you for coming on.
You are so welcome. I'm glad you mentioned that, Stacey, because it was like, a memory jar for me. And I was like, what? And then I realized, and I must tell you this as well. Thank you, because when you met me, you came to my beginning. That was the beginning of me starting ESP Presents and the beginning of everything. So I thank you for being there for my beginning.
Wow, got me feeling special. Miss Ellen, you've got two things about you that have caught my attention. The first one, because we have so much to, I have questions about you being an advocate. As I follow you, and then when I went to look more into what you do, I saw something about the kidney community. Could you tell me something about that?
Sure, Wallace Green, and we are of health and awareness, and it has gotten bigger and it has grown. So, Wallace, the beautiful part about health and awareness was Wallace, he started off the blueprint with someone else. So, when 6 months into the event, that person transitioned. And so he heard about me from somebody else that I am one that really loves to help. And so he asked me to help. We had a meeting, and in our meeting, it was supposed to be just for that event, and it was a huge event. And that one event became 12 years, now 13.
So when you were asked, you thinking, oh, just one event, you didn't know the relationship would go on this long.
You know what? Because I like to help so much, and he and I was most alike as far as if someone have us to help them, you better be ready because I'm going to help you all the way. I'm not just going to help you and drop you. I was doing so much, and we were doing so much for the community. And a lot of times we just didn't know how much we did for the community, that people thought that we had a full staff, but it was just him and I and one
Wow.
other person. So doing that, and I seen that more help was needed. The one day didn't even bother that it had turned into more.
Wow. And I'm always curious about like I know disease and illness does not discriminate. I do know that. But when I see African Americans advocating for a specific disease, I can't help but ask in your area or the area you're in, Is that something that African Americans are dealing with that don't know help is out there?
Yes, and that's why our community, and it's a help, but then it's a really big, um I want to say it as best as possible. It kind of is a little bit of a hurt, meaning that our community is a community that, uh, some of them are on living assistance and that type of walk of life. And so when we do things, there's a lot of times we're pouring more into what the community may not have. And we want to continue to have that. So our community it's that type of community.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you to Wallace. Thank you to you again. Because I always try to tell people you don't have to fight for what I'm fighting for, but fight for something, fight for someone. You know, you never know when you might need someone to help you.
That is so true.
So with that said, I'm really interested in what makes a person read so many books. I mean, I love reading, but when I look at a presenter or promoter, I'm like, oh my goodness. Tell me, how long have you been reading? Like, when did you start becoming an avid reader?
Great question. I had started, it was at my son elementary school. It was an empowerment of, it was parent empowerment. And what we were doing is like there were women, myself, my son, I had him at 35, and there was women who had like my age, maybe a little bit older, had younger kids. So we did a parent involvement specialist is what it was at Lee Hall. Now the name has changed. And so that 1 week program that we had together, we were helping the community, helping families, and we developed a relationship inward, outward. And so we found out what each other like, and we found out that we like books. And that's when the book side kind of kicked off. We were reading different kind of books, and then one of the readers, she said, "Hey, try Kimberly Lawson Roby." And so Kimberly Lawson Roby was the one that kicked her book off. Our group read at least maybe 3 to 5, possibly 8 of her books, the Curtis series. And we were just going back and forth, going to the bookstore. Well, at that time, we wasn't going to the bookstore, we were going to the library. And we were like, hurry up, go down there, get the book. I just turned it, and we were doing all that. And so we wanted to celebrate. So now we're the book club now. At that time, we were reading is what we do, book club. And
Okay.
so I wanted to thank authors and give back. And so with Kimberly Lawson Roby, she gave me the passion of reading. That's where it came from. And I found out I always wanted to read, wanted my son to read, but I wasn't reading. So I said, well, you need to be fair. You need to be reading. So after reading Kimberly Lawson Roby's book, and then I became an advocate. And so my son reads, and I didn't even know he was reading, but he does read. And so that's where my passion came from. And I wanted to give back because of Kimberly Lawson Roby.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard so much about her. I remember when I first started writing, someone said to me, you should really check Kimberly out. Um, when you started reading, okay, so when I started reading, Stacey, don't make this about you. I won't.
Love it. Love it.
Third person. When I started reading, I never imagined that I would write a book. I never imagined that Beverly Jenkins, I would one day have a connection to her and she would say hello to me on Facebook. When you started reading, did you eventually meet up with her?
Yes, ma'am. And I host her always on, I've met her in person and I host her online. In fact, we're going to have an event with her, one of her vintage book, and that's going to be February 4th. So the deepest secret, I may have said it wrong, but let me get to what you were saying. So Kimberly, her book, which she was around on the 4th or 5th book of the Curtis series. And so I read the book and I was like, I emailed her. I just
Okay.
thought that she might email me back. I just
Yeah.
didn't know that she wouldn't. Because it's
Yeah.
like no means not right now. They're not ready for you. And just wait. It never means no to me. And so
Right.
when I wrote her back, I emailed her back and she emailed me back. And I said, when is Curtis going to stop being a wayward pastor? Can we make him good? Why is he? And it wasn't smut, but it was the way that she just told that story. And that's where I understood that because I thought that all churches, we made ourselves as Christians that we don't fail, that nothing ever happened to us. And when I read in her book, I was like, are people mad at you? Well, how could you do this? Because the pastor was just, dating, another lady while married. I'm like, what
Right.
in the world? And I didn't think that happened. Okay, I didn't think that it happens in the church, but it does. And it starts seeing more, seemed like shortly after hers. So then she put Sin No More. That's what Curtis was doing a little bit better. And I said, thank you. And I thought that I would meet her one day, and I did. I met her several times, and I do host her online. So yes, that turned into a yes in seeing her online and in
But
person.
but you never thought like in a million years you'd be doing what you're doing and meeting these big authors.
No, no. In fact, if you look at my page, ESP Presents, the business page, is her and I on that. I saved it as my cover.
Wow, wow.
Yes.
So in your reading and you in the book club you guys created, right?
Hmm.
Do you have, or will you not tell me, a favorite author?
They all are my favorite. Kimberly is. I'm just gonna put it out there. Kimberly is one of mine, but I like them all. But Kimberly
I
is the
know.
one that has stayed with me. Yeah, Kimberly and there's more.
Okay.
There are more. So you're wanting to hear that?
Well, I wanted, okay. So before you came this big time presenter, right? And you're just reading books. That's what I wanted. Like, who did you find yourself drawn to the
Okay,
most?
awesome. So here's the thing. Another, you know that I'm very adventurous. Okay, before Kimberly, I read a book, and you may know him, Rick Johnson.
Not
And
sure.
Rick Johnson have a Love and Justice, and that is a 3-pack or 4-pack book. And
Okay.
so I read his book before I met him, and I didn't know that he was going to be at Barnes and Nobles here in Newport News, Virginia. So I'm reading his book. He is the first author that I've met in person and
Okay.
started reading his. So I'm in Barnes and Nobles. I see the book. You know how authors sometimes some of them put their pictures on the back of the book. So I'm walking in. He looked just like his book. He's a really nice looking guy. And I go and I said, Jason. He said, Jason, because that's his character. And then he was drinking coffee. I said, Jason drinks coffee. And I'm like, I just have to get over myself. And so with him, he was the first one that, as a book club, hosted him as a book club. And so I told him I'm waiting on. He left us on the beach 10 plus years, and he's going to write the next book. But that's when I started getting more and more reading it, and as well as Kimberly. So that book helped me to find out what genre you're in, and so that's what keep me going, knowing the genre that I'm in, and that was that taste. And then Kimberly just kind of lunged the rest of it, so I just full fledged became a 15 plus years, maybe more, diehard reader.
Wow. So then we have ESP starts. ESP presents. You're meeting authors, you got the book club, but what in the world made Ellen believe that she could be this big presenter planning these events and with these authors?
Okay, here it goes back to Rick. Rick Johnson, ESP Presents, came from Rick Johnson, Ellen Sudderth, event planner. So he said, I believe you're going to be somewhere. You could possibly be on Oprah. You can sell water to a whale. And so I kept going with that energy. And so then my first debut event of the ESP business was with New York Times bestseller Omar Tyree. So
Your
I
your
opened
your first event?
my first event.
How did that happen? An email?
No. So the here we go. This happened because remember things wasn't like it was now. So we used to have a Black Expo at the Coliseum, Hampton Coliseum. In my book club, folks, the readers was like, if you could get Omar Tyree to be at one of your book clubs, that would be great. I am just Ellen, and I just saw him there, and they said, there he is. And I was like, hmm. And I walk over to him, hands on his shoulder, as if I know him. Hey, Omar, how you doing? I said, I have an event. And he said, wait a minute, because he was also doing book sales. And
Okay.
then after talking with him, being there and being to the side, he said, you know what? He was had a book, Equations, and that talks about the five components, whether you are green and different colors. It all meant something. So guys kind of look at that equation. I love that book by him. And so after doing that, he gave me his card. He said, let's do business. He wrote it in my book. I didn't, anytime I get an author's book and he writes something, I don't read it right then and there. I wait to go home, sit
Okay.
down, and just kind of digest what is read because those are very important to me. But he said, let's do business. And we did.
And you did business.
And we did business. And I've
And you
been
planned
doing business with him for almost 17 years.
and you planned an event. And
Yeah.
he okay.
And he came.
Okay.
Now, that time it was like, do you remember when I think it's WorldCom, it failed? It was
Okay.
almost like it was a recession. So the tickets were $45. I got to say this. So I didn't know if that event would happen because everything kept falling. That event right there was 60 people there, even though things were happening bad.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. I
Yeah.
you talk about events. I remember the event that I came to that you gave. I remember it being really nice. I remember feeling very excited because I was around other authors and actually coming to an author event, you know. I think the writing world is exciting.
Yes.
You know, you think that you're the only person sitting around with such a wild imagination, and then and once again, nothing against anybody else, but not until I started getting older, not until I left high school and went to a HBCU, that I started finding out we have some very gifted African Americans authors and poets out here.
Yes.
Wow. So, what's your favorite genre?
Mine is romance, detective, suspense, and I like some bios, but
Okay.
mostly I'm in the romance. And it's like the romance is, got to have storyline. Like I said, Kimber Lawson, Roby's book. And that's what I like. I like what does this book do for me? What is the ending? How does it apply to me? And that's the way I read those books.
So now that you said those things that apply to you when you're reading books, as a presenter, first, for those that are watching, this is Ellen Sudderth, ESP Presents. Because you are a presenter, what exactly are you looking for when someone sends you their book that's going to say, yes, Ellen says she's going to stand by this book?
Ooh, great, great question. The first thing I do when I get that person's book is I actually have a talk with them. I look at their synopsis,
Okay.
and the synopsis tell me the audience. It first tell me if I want to read it, and then it tells me the audience. If it's not a fit, I'll let them know that if it's a fit, I'll contact you. That's how you know if it's a fit. But that synopsis is very important to me. And reading that, it lets me know what the audience is. And so when I look and I read that synopsis and I go into that story, then I know and I have an idea. And that's when I start sending it out the old fashioned way, sending it out flyers and different things to those of like minded within that genre. And so one of the things is while talking to the author and their book, they have to understand that this is their baby. And if I say this is good, then believe in who you are for me presenting what you have. You know what I'm saying? Because if you see me and maybe you haven't, when I read a book, I go in and deep dive into the character, deep dive into the conversation, what is going on in this story. And then some books, and probably a lot of books have where at the back of the book, there's discussions. Well, I'm not saying that I ignore them, but I like from my experience. I love to talk about the book from my experience of what the writer wrote. And so what happens generally when we deep dive like that, they don't even know it's their own book. They like, who is that? I'm like, that's your book. Oh, I didn't quite see it that way. I said, isn't that what you want the readers to do? Wasn't that your thought process to get emotions and to get how this person feels and bring out what you put on paper? They said, yeah.
What do you do when someone gives you a book and it's a, mm-mm, I can't do this. I won't speak for this. What do you do? How do you handle that?
That
Because I'm sorry, because an author decides I'm gonna send my book to Ellen, and then Ellen doesn't like the book.
mm-hmm.
What do
So
you do?
at that moment we will have a discussion. I may not be I may not be the one who to present this book because I'm not in this genre. It would be fair to you to find your audience, and I could look for someone that is in that particular genre, that type of book, and send them to them, because I think it's only fair and best to see what genre you is. Doesn't mean it's not a good book. It's just not a fit for me.
So you're not only a good reader or a good presenter, you're a good wordsmith also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have you written or ever thought about writing your own book?
Yes, I have a book that I'm writing that I've set on the shelf for a while. But my book is about me growing up in my family. My mom is deaf and no hearing, no speaking. And I want to kind of share what that was like for me to be in a family with a mom that's deaf. My dad is hearing. So the book is going to be sort of like a story or novel, if you will. And some people might say a memoir. And there are going to be character based. So with this, I have people that are a part of the story, that is a part of the family, like my mom, my dad, and certain family members. They have names. So I'm at this part where I'm doing character definition. So I've already had this outline. I already know what I would do. I already, for example, can spill this part of it. Is my first chapter is the voice. And the reason why it's the voice is because my dad was the voice in the house, because my mom, she cannot hear or speak.
So I'm learning to be better. I have someone that watches and says, when you say it's interesting, you're about to go deep. I'm trying not to say this is interesting because I'm going to limit it to one question and then I'll wait. You got my attention. Your mother has always been deaf?
Yes. Now, I don't know whether she was born deaf, because I'm hearing different stories that my mother, my grandmother, her mother, when she was 16, she had rubella, a measles, or something like that. And being that my grandmother was born in 1910 or 1917, back then, right now she'll be 100 and something years old. So they didn't take care of Black women, you know. And they weren't, my mom, she told me they lived on a farm. So they were, um, what I was told, like the silent crew, those that are in the 80 plus. They lived on the farm. They were sharecroppers, but they weren't particularly slaves, but they did pick cotton and they did pick up potatoes and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, Mama, I think you was a slave. But I
So,
didn't say it like that. I didn't sound it like that. And so there's some things that you will know that as a child, even though my dad spoke and my mom didn't, she was deaf. So I catered more to my dad who was hearing, which I'm going to correlate this to. If someone is speak English and one parent speaks Spanish, you may sometimes go to the English speaking side, but you can hear what they're saying in Spanish, but you're just not saying it back. So whereas my mom, when she did sign language, I knew what she was talking about, but I didn't know how to say it back because I wasn't interested. Does that make sense?
yes, ma'am. And congratulations. And I can't wait until you finish the book.
Thank you so much.
And before we take a short break, Cyrus Webb has popped up. Well, let me say this in case you didn't see this. Okay, so we had author Sharon Blunt pop want to say hello. Um, Kate Thurman from the Kate Thurman and Graceful Gatherings show. She said hello. And then we have the man himself pop on. Cyrus says, love this. Ellen Ann Smith Sudderth is a great advocate for authors. Yes, indeed. I agree. So we're going to take a short break and we'll come back Speaking of books, we have another author that we should can't wait to see if you're going to review her book, but I'm going to bring up another author, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Baptized by the trials and tribulations of life, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, Dr. Taz, is a crusader for messy people. That is, people who recognize their mess and are working diligently to not be stifled by their circumstances. Despite being sexually abused and bullied by both adults and peers, Dr. Taz did not adopt a victim mentality. Get the book, Stronger: How Overcoming Life's Adversities Can Push You Into Your Purpose by Dr. Teresa A. Smith. Available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle.
I'll be interested to see if that's one that Ellen reviews.
I would love to. In fact, I got her book. I saw you talking to her the other day. I looked at the replay. I didn't catch it live, and I think that would be a great story to dive into.
Thank you. Please tag me in it should you review it. I've got to get it. I'm looking forward to reading reading her story. For you, promoting authors. If someone writes a book, because see, you're this person that knows exactly how the story should be written. If you're talking to someone that says to you, Miss Ellen, I want to write a book, can you name 3 things that as an author I should pay attention to when I start my book?
That is a great thing. People think that that's a great question. People think that I am an author. And because I started out working with New York Times bestseller, I got to be in the trenches. Okay. So, with that being asked, had I not been in the trenches, I may not be able to answer that. But I'll answer that with this. And number one thing, they have to know if they want to put their book out there. What I'm finding is that people want to just show their book. They're not trying to do the book. So, is the book in your head? Is it already written? Do you mind sharing your book? Do you want your book just on this? I know it's more than one. Do you want your book just on the shelf? So those are the things they have to think about first.
Right. And when people, I had to learn this the hard way, editors. There is a difference between a editor that's just looking for grammar and an editor for a book, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you find that people miss that?
As being a reader, and that's not in my total wheelhouse, but from seeing that, what happens is they just want the book to be written and they're not thinking about it. What make me see that more is that they didn't do the editing part of it, had someone to edit it, is because I see stuff transposed. And because I am a reader, my mind will tell me what goes there, but I see what's not there. Okay. So somebody could be, start their story out and the person is in the car, for example, and they never entered the house yet. Now the person is in the house. So how did he get from the car to the house? He was not in the house. When did he get there? So stuff like that, you need to have someone to edit and to see those different things transposing.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. So why, as an author, should I contact ESP Presents? What is it that exactly that ESP Presents does? And who's this Ellen? What is Ellen going to do for me?
One of the things is I am going to be passionate with your work. We are definitely like, if you are a new writer, for example, we honed in and we thrive on those who are new writers. I don't care if it's a manuscript. I don't care if they just got the book today. So the main thing is, you as an author, why should you go to Ellen? Because Ellen is going to tender your book as if it was her own. She's going to make sure that you see what your baby is doing. She's going to make sure that you get the right audience. She is going to make sure that you don't overlook your baby and give it the right birth, the right place to be, and the right readers.
I agree with the person that said you could sell water. Great elevator pitch. Great. Great. I love the way you sell yourself. Ellen, is there anything before we get to how people can find you, follow you, reach out to you? Is there anything, because you're just so interesting when it comes to this book world thing, that I didn't ask you that we need to know?
Well, as far as reading or an author that may be looking, like I say, the young writers, I want to go back with that
Okay.
to really be sure that you get in with readership. We haven't talked about that. It is so important to have readership. That way you have community. You do not want to be alone. Don't be a lone writer author. You need to have that community because quite a bit I've seen where people try to do it on their own, spend more money doing less when they should have paid for what they needed to get it done. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Wow. So if a book comes to you and you see potential, will you give advice? Will you tell them, well, go back, let's try this, and then come back?
I would tell them to, because I know people who are book coach,
Okay.
and I would just send them that way. I would say, hey, this person does book coaching. It is worth it. It is worth knowing. I know you wrote your story, but there's some things that someone that it has been there before can make sure that you get where you need to be.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any shout outs for top selling authors that you've been working with or anything?
Yes, we will say Kimberly Lawson Roby. Thank you.
Okay.
Always thank you. Thank you. And I wouldn't want to pigeonhole him, and that is New York Times bestseller Omar Tyree.
Okay.
I wasn't his fly girl. Everybody knows him on his fly girl. I was
Okay.
more on his business book,
Okay. Okay.
pecking order, equation, like that. And also, I've been seeing Victoria Christopher Murray. I've hosted her before, and I've been seeing her doing new stuff. I love what they're doing. Rashonda Tate Billingsley, I hosted her as well, and Trisha Thomas, the Napoli Ever After story. And you may not know this, but she came to Newport News, Virginia. I am so honored for this. If she ever did this, she allowed me to host her 10th year anniversary of Napoli Ever After.
Well, Miss Ellen, you're gonna need to start tagging me or something so I can come across the water.
That was so many years ago, but it was
Wow.
so awesome.
Wow. So
Mm-hmm.
tell us, beautiful, how can we follow you? How can we reach out to you? And if there's something different that a new author needs to do, please let us know.
Okay, so they can reach out to me, ESP Presents, on all social medias. That's ESP Presents. And they can also see me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and that's pretty much where I am. And if they want to, what is popular right now, I have is my 3 day show. That is very popular. That is the most popular because we get 3 days. We take time, deep dive each day into their story. We may do a chapter 1, a chapter 2, and we're deep diving. So if they want to do that event, that would be great to do our 3 day because that's what's popular. And I do have one that is a 30-minute, and I do the shout out, scout out, which is a free 3 to 5 minutes. But those other ones, and then the $75, it's not deep diving into the 3 day. That's why they say I'd rather do the deep dive into the 3 day. Yes.
It's been great, beautiful. It's been great. Thank you for coming on. I'm wishing you the best. I also, like I said, let me know when the next event happens. I'll come across the water. I want to see you. I want to see
Thank
you
you.
again.
Thank
And
you
I'm
so
always
much.
wishing.
I'm sorry. Can I tell you what I have coming up?
Excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I have coming up in the month of January, this month right here, I do have Kimberly. Her name is Kimberly Beasley, and
Uh-huh.
we're doing her book, and it's a children's book, talk about colorism. So that's going to be on the 14th, and then we have Queenie Clem tomorrow. I'm just going to give you the recent one, and we also have I'm going to interview her as well, and then we're going to also have Andrew Johnson, and he is the 313 Men, Money, and Marriage. So you'll see that on Instagram. And thank you so much.
No problem. And take care. Thank you. And I'm wishing you even more huge success, you and your big authors. And thank you for the time that you give to the authors that have not hit the bestsellers list yet. Take care, beautiful. All right. Told you it was going to be a great interview. You're watching Stacey Thomas. And my guest tonight was the beautiful Ellen Sudderth, who just happens to be the CEO of ESP Presents. This was a show for authors. This was a show for publishers. This was a show for people who have the desire to write a book and may not know exactly who's out there that once they do their book that can assist them in promoting. As always, don't stress too much about yesterday. Don't worry too much about tomorrow because you just might miss living today. And don't forget, follow my guests. She told you Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, ESP Presents. Thank you and have a great night.
Want to be heard? Get featured on The Stacey Thomas Show. Join Stacey for conversations on entertainment, books, and entrepreneurship. Don't miss out. Elevate your brand today. Book your interview now. Email staceythomas@gmail.com.